Marked by a tyrant after transmigrating. Chapter 43. Hearing Xiao Huan's words, Yeshu's first reaction was that this person couldn't have been sent by Jin Wang to test him, right? He couldn't be blamed for being suspicious. Although Jin Wang hadn't treated him like that recently, this person had done quite a bit of flirting in the past, so Yeshu had no choice but to act cautiously. Thinking of this, Yeshu sized up the youth in front of him again. Due to the influence of his designation, Omegas usually have a weak temperament. However, the youth in front of him wasn't like that. Xiao Huan was born into a family of martial arts practitioner and had practiced martial arts since he was young. His facial features were delicate and handsome, and when paired with his awe-inspiring righteousness, his integrity was unquestionable. If this was all an act, then this person's acting skills were probably already at the pinnacle of perfection. However, Yeshu still didn't dare to believe him. He pondered for a moment, then said, "Young Master Xiao, I'm afraid it's not appropriate for you to address His Majesty like that." "What's not appropriate about it?" Xiao Huan snorted coldly. "If it weren't for my father's help back then, would he have gotten the throne? Jin Wang is now doing great. Now that he's firmly seated on the throne, he's starting to clear out his old subordinates. Wasn't that why Yeshu Gege was killed?" Yeshu's eyes twitched. He understood the meaning behind Xiao Huan's words. "Are you saying that Minister Yes' death was unjust? How could it not be?" At the mention of this name, Xiao Huan became even angrier. Yeshu Gege treated him so well, so there's no way he would betray him. Once the birds are gone, the bow is cast aside and the rabbit is cooked. That dog of an emperor will one day get what he deserves. The more Yeshu listened, the more confused he became. He asked, "But the dog, isn't His Majesty doing well right now?" Xiao Huan looked at him with a sympathetic and compassionate gaze. "Don't worry, I'm not trying to lie to you." Xiao Huan's voice softened as he said seriously, "I know that ever since Yeshu Gege died, that dog of an emperor took you because you look so much like Yeshu Gege. He kept you by his side and tortured you in every possible way. Since he treated you like that, it's no wonder you're so afraid of him." Yeshu. Was this the image that outsiders have of him? Yeshu pressed the space between his eyebrows. "Young Master Xiao, you seem to have misunderstood. His Majesty treats me quite well. His Majesty doesn't torture me." Xiao Huan fell silent. He looked into Yeshu's eyes. After a while, he sighed softly. "He humiliated you like that, yet you still speak up for him. You're so kind." Yeshu was speechless. "You look so much like Yeshu Gege. It must be fate." Xiao Huan stepped forward and said warmly, "Come with me. Let's go back to our fief in the south. That dog emperor has to give my father some face. Even if he finds out where you are, he won't dare to come and take you away so easily. No one will ever hurt you again." The young man's expression was so sincere anyone would find it hard to reject him. Yeshu was more than happy to leave this place. He didn't belong here in the first place. If he stayed by that tyrant's side, he would always have to worry about his safety. If Xiao Huan had come a few months earlier, Yeshu definitely wouldn't have hesitated. But now, his hand that was hidden by the fox fur coat touched his abdomen, and his eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't seem to want to leave as much as before. "You still doubt me, right?" Xiao Huan said. "How about this, I'll give you a few days to think about it. The end of the year is approaching. 10 days from now is New Year's Eve. His Majesty will be hosting a banquet in the palace to entertain the officials. I will be waiting under the tree in front of Kong Gate at 11:15. If the imperial consort has thought it through, please come find me." Xiao Huan advised, "I don't have any bad intentions. I hope that the imperial consort will consider it carefully. That dog emperor treats you as a substitute. Forget about how he treats you now, even if one day he really treats you well, How can you be sure that he's doing it for you and not for that person in his heart? Yeshu was taken aback. The light in the dark alley they were in was dim, and even the moonlight was blocked by the high palace walls. As a result, Xiao Huan didn't notice that Yeshu's face had suddenly turned pale. Xiao Huan leaned against the palace wall and his eyes dimmed slightly. You don't know, but I've been regretting it for the past few days. If I had known this would happen, I would have insisted on taking Yeshugege away. The capital is a place that eats people without spitting out their bones. I shouldn't have let him stay by that dog emperor's side. In any case, you should think about it carefully. He patted Yeshu's shoulder, then turned and walked into the dark alley, quickly disappearing without a trace. Yeshu returned to his sleeping quarters alone. The night gradually darkened and the lights in the empty main hall gradually dimmed. Yeshu lay on his bed in a daze. Xiao Huan meant something else by his words, but the words he said before he left kept echoing in Yeshu's mind. Even if one day he really treats you well, how can you be sure that he's doing it for you and not for that person in his heart? Yeshu had always understood that Jin Wang treated him well because of the original. In order to survive, he even intended to take advantage of Jin Wang's feelings for the original. At that time, his life was at stake, so he didn't have time to think too much. But now, the current him didn't have to worry about his life anymore, but he still took advantage of it. Some lies were easy to say, but taking them back was much more difficult than one would imagine. This was what Jin Wang had said to him before, and how could he not be the same? Yeshu turned over and buried his face in the pillow. It was all because Jin Wang had treated him too well these past few days. So good that he almost forgot his own identity, so good that he almost felt that the light that Jin Wang spoke of was for him. The palace lanterns were completely extinguished, and the moonlight replaced the candle light, making the hall even colder. After an unknown amount of time, there was a sudden squeak from the window. Yeshu opened his eyes. It was very windy that night, so he must have forgotten to close the window. Yeshu wasn't used to having others serve him, and no one was allowed to stay in Yongshao Palace at night. These things were usually done by himself. He sighed and slowly got up from the bed. Then he met a pair of bright eyes in the darkness. Yeshu was about to cry out in alarm, but someone immediately covered his mouth. The person wrapped one hand around his waist, and the other pressed tightly against his lips. In a low voice, he said, "Don't shout, it's me." With the help of the moonlight, Yeshu could clearly see the face in front of him. Who else could it be but Jin Wang? Yeshu. Seeing that Yeshu had calmed down, Jin Wang let go of him. Both of them felt a little awkward. Yeshu suddenly felt a headache coming on as he asked, "Why are you here?" Jin Wang's expression was a little uncomfortable. He coughed lightly and pretended to be serious. "Can't I come to see you?" Yeshu was suspicious. "You didn't come through the door without notifying me, and you climbed through the window in the middle of the night. Also, what are you wearing? Are you wearing night clothes?" Jin Wang stared at the small patch of moonlight at his feet and didn't answer. Yeshu vaguely sensed something and said in disbelief, "Have you been coming to my bedroom like this every night for the past few days?" Jin Wang vaguely said, "Not every day." Yeshu. He just knew that a dog couldn't change its habit of eating shit, and a dog emperor couldn't change its habit of being horny. Would this person ever become human one day? Seeing Yeshu's sullen expression, Jin Wang explained, "I didn't do anything to you. I just hugged you to sleep for a few hours and left before the sun rose. Normally, you would be asleep by this time, but who knew that you would still be awake at this time tonight? Wait, it's already so late. Why aren't you asleep yet?" I can't sleep." Yeshu's expression softened a little when he remembered what he was thinking about earlier. He turned around and walked towards the bed. Jin Wang hurriedly followed him and helped him lie down. "Why can't you sleep again? Are you feeling unwell?" "No." Yeshu whispered. Jin Wang looked down at him, a trace of a smile appearing in his eyes. Are you thinking about what I told you today? Yeshu didn't answer. Jin Wang pulled the blanket over him and gently said, if you're thinking about this, you don't have to take it to heart. I've already said that I'll give you time. You don't have to decide about it immediately. Yeshu mumbled a response. Jin Wang helped him tuck in the blanket but didn't leave. He sat by the bed and quietly looked at him. Yeshu looked up and met his gaze. Jin Wang's expression was innocent. Yeshu sighed and moved to the side. Come up. This was perhaps the first tyrant in history who had to look at his own concubine's face before he could get into bed. Yeshu couldn't help but wonder when this person had become like this. However, the person involved didn't seem to think that there was anything wrong with this. He happily took off his night clothes, climbed onto the bed, and pulled Yeshu into his embrace. His series of movements were skillful and nimble. It was unknown how many times he had practiced this. Yeshu once again doubted whether he was telling the truth when he said that he didn't come every day. The hall was silent for a moment. Yeshu finally began to feel sleepy in this familiar embrace. Jin Wang suddenly spoke, Ashu, did I violate our agreement and make you angry? Yeshu opened his eyes and said in a soft voice, actually, I'm not very angry. This person had secretly snuck into his room while he was asleep. He should have been angry, but for some reason, he just couldn't get angry. He thought about how the dignified monarch of a country had disguised himself every night in the dead of night for half a month, avoiding detection and coming here just to accompany him to sleep for a few hours. He even had to leave before daybreak. Yeshu didn't have any anger left in his heart. Jin Wang gently stroked his hair and sighed. I'm just very worried. Yeshu's eyes flickered. I'm always worried that when I wake up, you'll disappear again. As long as you're not in front of me, I'm always worried. Jin Wang continued, it's not that I don't trust you, but I can't help but think that way. Yeshu said, the imperial palace is so heavily guarded. Where does your majesty think I can run to? No matter how heavily guarded the imperial palace is, it can't protect the hearts of the people. Jin Wang lightly laughed and shook his head. Let's not talk about this anymore. Go to sleep. I'll accompany you. Yeshu responded and buried his head in Jin Wang's chest. But this time, he didn't feel sleepy. After a while, Yeshu called out, Jin Wang. What is it? If one day you find out that I lied to you, what will you do? Yeshu lowered his eyes. Will you kill me? Jin Wang fell silent. He lifted Yeshu's head and looked seriously into his eyes. I lied to you before. Do you want to kill me? Yeshu shook his head. No. Then that's all right. Yeshu probed, but what if the fact that I kept from you is very serious? Jin Wang's palm landed on his lower abdomen and his fingertips lightly touched it. Is it more serious than this? Yeshu didn't hesitate. Of course. If that's the case. Jin Wang muttered to himself for a moment, then said, then I still can't kill you. He smiled evilly and moved closer to Yeshu. He whispered in his ear, but I will do what I did before. I will chain you to the bed and bully you all day and night. I want to make it so that you can't get out of bed anymore. You haven't truly experienced my methods yet. I guarantee that you won't dare to have any thoughts of betrayal after experiencing it once. Yeshu shuddered. Jin Wang lightly patted the back of his head. That's enough. Don't let your imagination run wild. Go to sleep. But Yeshu was still worried. He turned and sat up. Just as he was about to speak, his body suddenly froze. Jin Wang also sat up and asked anxiously, what's wrong? Yeshu lowered his head and looked at his abdomen. His voice was trembling. Just now, I think he moved. End chapter. Marked by a tyrant after transmigrating. Chapter 44. After carrying the little cub for so long, this was the first time Yeshu truly felt its existence. He placed his palm on his lower abdomen and unconsciously held his breath. As if sensing his father's movements, the little cub in his stomach moved again. The strength was very light, like a kitten's paw. It scratched Yeshu's palm across his abdomen, but it didn't make him feel uncomfortable. In fact, it was very novel. Yeshu was so shocked that his voice trembled. He really moved. Jinwang was also very surprised. Yeshu had been pregnant with this cub for almost 4 months and his pregnancy was already showing a little. It was just that his winter clothes were thicker, so it wasn't very noticeable. But if he changed into lighter summer clothes, it could be clearly seen that his originally flat belly was bulging a little. Jinwang reached out and placed his hand on it. As if he was afraid of disturbing something, he used very little strength. However, there was no movement in his stomach at all. Yeshu frowned and said, "Go move a little." "Didn't you move just now?" There was still no movement. The two of them were in a deadlock for a moment. Yeshu looked up at Jinwang and said seriously, "He's afraid of you." Jinwang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Am I that scary?" Yeshu nodded. "Yes." Jinwang. "Forget it." Jinwang said, "Go to sleep. It's very late." Yeshu was still a little unsatisfied. However, no matter how he coaxed or scolded, or even wanted to get out of bed and walk around, the little cub in his stomach didn't move. Yeshu was tired and sleepy from playing, so he could only give up for now. Jinwang hugged Yeshu and lay down. The latter quickly fell silent. Perhaps because he had something on his mind, Yeshu didn't sleep well that night. His brows were tightly knitted, and from time to time, he would turn over in Jinwang's arms. Jinwang was worried that he would press down on his stomach, so he tightened his grip on Yeshu's waist and pulled him into his arms. Yeshu leaned against Jinwang's chest. Under Jinwang's embrace, he gradually stopped moving. Jinwang's hand naturally landed on Yeshu's abdomen. Yeshu's waist was slender. Even though his pregnancy was starting to show, it wasn't too obvious. Jinwang placed his palm on Yeshu's lower abdomen and gently stroked it. Suddenly, a slight fluctuation came from the skin under his palm. Jinwang opened his eyes in shock. It was an indescribably wonderful feeling. He could clearly feel that there was a small, lively being under his palm that was slowly growing. And this little life was his and Yeshu's flesh and blood. Jinwang couldn't help but rub his bulging stomach again. The little cub in his stomach seemed to have woken up completely and was moving about restlessly in her Yeshu's womb. Ugh! Yeshu seemed to be a little uncomfortable from the disturbance and frowned as he let out a low moan. Jinwang reprimanded him in a low voice, "Don't move around. Go to sleep." As if Jinwang's deterrence had taken effect, the fluctuation under his palm quickly stopped. Am I really that scary? Jinwang reflected on this in his heart. At this moment, Yeshu turned over and snuggled into Jinwang's arms. He rubbed his head against the crook of Jinwang's arm. "Don't disturb me." I won't disturb you." Jinwang stroked his hair and said gently, "Go to sleep." It was a dreamless night. When Yeshu woke up the next morning, Jinwang was indeed no longer in the hall. A palace maid came in with some toiletries. Yeshu couldn't help but ask, "Last night, did you notice anything strange?" A young girl dressed in palace attire was rolling up the bed curtains. She was stunned for a moment. This servant kept watch outside the hall last night and didn't notice anything strange. What is young master referring to? It's nothing. It seemed that Jinwang had indeed left before dawn, just as he had said. Yeshu sighed. He felt an indescribable sense of discomfort in his heart. The palace maid pushed open the window that Jinwang had opened and closed last night. Outside the courtyard, several eunuchs were holding red silk lanterns and busying themselves. The end of the year was approaching. The palace eunuchs had to start decorating the palace from then on. Everyone became busy that night, and the cold and cheerless palace had a New Year's atmosphere as a result. 10 days passed in the blink of an eye. On New Year's Eve, His Majesty held a banquet at Fangxian Pavilion and invited all of the officials. When Yeshu arrived at Fangxian Pavilion, not all of the officials had yet arrived. There were people coming and going outside Fangxian Pavilion. Yeshu was helped out of the imperial sedan by a eunuch. He looked up and saw a figure standing outside the hall. It was Xiao Huan. Xiao Huan walked over with a smile and bowed to him, "Greetings to the imperial consort." Yeshu returned the greeting. After not seeing him for a few days, the young consort's complexion looked worse than before. It could be seen that the dog emperor had not let him off just because the end of the year was approaching. Xiao Huan sighed in his heart. He looked at the youth with a trace of sympathy in his eyes. Seeing that no one was paying attention to them, Xiao Huan took a step forward and asked in a low voice, "Imperial consort, have you thought about it? Don't forget our agreement." Yeshu naturally didn't forget. Not only did he not forget, but because of this matter, he had been thinking about it day and night. He hadn't been able to sleep well for a single night. Before Yeshu could answer, Jin Wang's voice came from behind him, "What are you talking about?" Yeshu was so frightened that he trembled. He quickly turned around, Your Majesty." Jin Wang naturally pulled the youth into his arms, "The banquet is about to start. Come upstairs with me." "Yes." Jin Wang ignored Xiao Huan, who was still standing to the side. He hugged Yeshu and walked straight towards Fangxian Pavilion. Xiao Huan's face revealed his displeasure, but he didn't dare to say anything. He coldly snorted, then turned around and walked towards the side door through which the officials entered the hall. Fangxian Pavilion was the tallest building in the imperial palace. Jin Wang pulled Yeshu up to the top of the building. He leaned against the railing and looked out over the entire imperial palace that was covered in snow. It was currently dusk and the sky was about to turn dark. The red lanterns hanging all over the imperial palace were already lit, and decorations could be seen everywhere. However, Yeshu wasn't in the mood to enjoy the scenery. He carefully looked at the person beside him and felt an inexplicable sense of guilt. He didn't know if this person had heard Xiao Huan's words just now. Jin Wang's expression didn't seem out of ordinary. However, this person had never shown his emotions on his face, so this didn't mean anything. As expected, he heard Jin Wang leisurely ask, "What did Xiao Huan say to you just now?" Yeshu suddenly looked away and said in a small voice, "It's nothing." Jin Wang didn't say anything and quietly looked at him. His expression was calm, but there seemed to be something extremely deep hidden in his eyes. When Yeshu looked at him, he felt a chill run down his spine. After a while, Jin Wang calmly withdrew his gaze and said, "Let's take our seats." The curtain of night fell, and singing and dancing filled the air. The officials toasted each other, and the atmosphere was joyous and harmonious. Jin Wang didn't seem to be out of sorts tonight. As usual, he was considerate to Yeshu, but it was obvious that he drank more wine than usual. Not long after, there was a pile of wine jars by his feet. After hearing Jin Wang ask the eunuch to bring more wine, Yeshu finally couldn't help but say, "Your Majesty shouldn't drink any more." Jin Wang paused, and the eunuch next to him was also stunned. No one had ever dared to say the word no to the emperor. Yeshu lowered his eyes and reminded in a low voice, "It's almost 9 o'clock. The banquet should be ending soon." After New Year's Eve, it would be the New Year. The banquet would usually end early to allow the officials to go home and reunite with their families. Jin Wang's eyes were no longer as clear as before. He paused for a moment, then nodded and said, "That's fine." Everyone left, and the officials left one after another. Only Jin Wang and Yeshu were left on the tall pavilion. Jin Wang supported himself on the table and stood up. His body swayed, and he fell back down. Yeshu hurriedly supported him. "I told you not to drink too much," Yeshu complained in a low voice. Jin Wang was much taller than him, so it was difficult for him to support him. Yeshu had no way of pulling him up. Without waiting for Yeshu to decide whether to do it himself or have the eunuch carry him away, Jin Wang suddenly pointed to the sky and said, "Look over there." There was an explosion of fireworks in the distant sky. Fangxian Pavilion had a wide view. Yeshu looked up and saw a dazzling display of fireworks in the sky. It was so close that it seemed like he could touch it if he raised his hand. The night sky was lit up as if it was daytime. Amidst the noise, Jin Wang turned around and gently stroked Yeshu's cheek with his finger. The touch was very light, so Yeshu didn't notice. At the same time, he did not notice the gloom that flashed across Jin Wang's eyes. After a short while, the fireworks stopped. Yeshu was about to speak when he suddenly felt a weight on his shoulder. Jin Wang was leaning on his shoulder. Yeshu turned his head to look. Jin Wang's eyes were slightly closed, as if he had already fallen asleep. He fell asleep? "Your Majesty!" Yeshu called out softly. "Jin Wang." There was no response. He really did drink too much. Yeshu felt a little helpless. He pressed the space between his eyebrows and called for the eunuchs to help him up. Several eunuchs hurriedly helped Jin Wang down the stairs. The imperial sedan was already waiting outside the hall. Jin Wang really did seem to be very drunk. He didn't even open his eyes after being helped into the imperial sedan. His expression looked a little uncomfortable. The eunuchs helped Jin Wang settle down, then turned around to help Yeshu into the sedan. Yeshu shook his head. "I don't need it." "Send His Majesty back to the palace first," Yeshu said. The eunuchs looked a little hesitant, "But young master." Yeshu interrupted, "This place isn't far from Yongshao Palace. I'll just walk around for a bit and will be back soon." The eunuchs still wanted to say something, but Yeshu coldly snorted, "What, are you going to ignore my orders?" This slave wouldn't dare. Yeshu turned around to leave, but then he thought of something and turned around. "Remember to boil a bowl of hangover soup for His Majesty to drink before he sleeps." The eunuchs replied, "Yes, young master." He took one last look in the direction of the imperial sedan. The curtains outside the imperial sedan had already been lowered by the eunuchs. Under the illumination of the palace lanterns on both sides of the road, one could vaguely make out a blurry figure inside. Yeshu silently let out a sigh of relief, then turned around and walked into the night. Jin Wang's drunkenness tonight made it easier for Yeshu to take action. On New Year's Eve, the palace was livelier than usual. The eunuchs were in groups of 2s and 3s, admiring the lanterns and lighting up the fireworks. The quiet and desolate imperial palace was also filled with a bit of smoke and fire. Because of Jin Wang's tolerance and love for him recently, Yeshu's journey was unimpeded. When he arrived at Kong Gate, there was still quite a bit of time before the appointed time with Xiao Huan. However, the person was already waiting there. Xiao Huan was dressed in black and walked out from behind a tree. The moment he saw Yeshu, his eyes lit up. Xiao Huan said, "I knew you would come. I've already prepared everything. In a bit, we'll." "Young Master Xiao," Yeshu said softly, "I came to tell you that I don't plan on leaving with you." Xiao Huan was startled. Yeshu said seriously, "I appreciate young Master Xiao's good intentions, but I can't implicate you." "You don't need to worry about this," Xiao Huan said, "didn't I tell you before? Even if we were discovered, that dog of an emperor wouldn't." "That's only the first reason." Yeshu interrupted him, "The second reason is that His Majesty and I still have some unfinished business. I can't leave him right now." "What do you mean by unfinished business?" Xiao Huan's brows furrowed slightly as he suddenly understood. You can't really be interested in Jin Wang, right? You should know very well that his treatment of you isn't sincere at all, right? He's only..." In the end, he didn't say those words out loud. On the horizon, fireworks turned into scattered specks of light that fell down. It was a beautiful sight to behold. The two of them stood under the fireworks. After a moment, Xiao Huan said softly, "Sometimes when I talk to you, I really feel like Yeshugage has returned. I met Yeshugage 5 years ago. At that time, I told him that the capital was full of danger and that he should leave with me. But he refused. He said that he still had things he had to do here, that there were people he couldn't let go of." His expression and tone when he spoke were exactly the same as you are now. "Perhaps it's because you're so similar to him that I want to take you with me." Xiao Huan laughed mockingly. "These past few days, I've even suspected that. You aren't really Yeshugage, right?" Yeshu fell into a strange silence. The smile on Xiao Huan's face gradually faded. But Yeshu quickly shook his head. "I'm not him. Sometimes, if you pretend to be someone for too long, even I will suspect you." Yeshu lowered his eyes and said in a low voice, "But a fake is a fake. I'm not him. I know this very well." Hearing this, Xiao Huan's expression relaxed. "It's good that you're not him." Xiao Huan turned his head. Most of his face was hidden in the darkness, so his expression couldn't be seen clearly, but his voice was a bit hoarse. "I don't want to see Yeshugage with that dog emperor at all. He's not worthy." Yeshu opened his mouth, not knowing how to explain. "Forget it," Xiao Huan said. "Since you don't want to go, I won't force you." He paused for a moment, then said in a serious tone, "But you have to think carefully. After today, you won't have such a good opportunity. That dog emperor is so abnormal. He won't let you go. Don't let your feelings get to your head." Yeshu smiled helplessly, then said seriously, "I won't go and I won't regret it either." "All right." Xiao Huan's expression looked a bit unwilling, but he didn't say anything else. "Then I'll go back first. I'll sneak out when my father isn't paying attention. If I don't go back now, he'll find out." He cupped his hands in greeting to Yeshu. "Take care. Yeshu, take care." Xiao Huan's figure quickly disappeared into the night. Yeshu turned around and was about to go back the way he came from when he saw a figure turn the corner of the palace wall not far away. It was Jin Wang. The person was still dressed the same as before, but his eyes were clear and he didn't look drunk at all. He looked at Yeshu from afar and the corners of his mouth rose in a smile that Yeshu was very familiar with. Yeshu. Was it too late for him to regret it now? End chapter. Marked by a tyrant after transmigrating. Chapter 45. The atmosphere fell into a strange silence for a moment. After a while, Yeshu hesitantly asked, How long have you been there? And how much did he overhear?" Jin Wang's smile faded a little, "Not long." He paused for a moment, then continued, "But Zhen followed you here." That meant that he had heard everything. Yeshu felt a chill run down his spine. It was so cold that he was trembling all over. Tonight, Jin Wang pretended to be drunk. As for why, it was probably because he wanted to test whether or not he would leave with Xiao Huan. His previous worries were not misplaced. This person had already noticed that there was something going on between him and Xiao Huan. Jin Wang walked forward step by step and reached out to grab Yeshu. However, the latter retreated half a step in shock. His hand hovered in the air for a moment before he easily pulled Yeshu over. "Are you cold?" Jin Wang held his hand. "Your palms are sweaty. Are you afraid that this emperor will be angry?" Yeshu's lips turned pale as he pursed his lips. Jin Wang used one hand to pull Yeshu into his embrace and gently stroked his back. "This emperor won't be angry. Don't be afraid." Jin Wang pressed his forehead against Yeshu's cold forehead. His eyes were gentle as he smiled gently. "Little fool, you're willing to stay for this emperor's sake. This emperor is more than happy, so why would Zhen be angry?" Yeshu's eyes were a little flustered. Let's go back first. It's too cold outside," Jin Wang said. He called for someone to bring over the imperial sedan and helped Yeshu onto it. Yeshu still hadn't recovered from his shock and was still in a daze. He only regained his senses when Jin Wang reached out to take off his fox fur coat when they entered the room. He was brought back to Yangzin Palace Hall by Jin Wang. Jin Wang placed his fox fur coat to the side and said with a smile, "You didn't object when I asked you if you were willing to return to the Yangzin Palace Hall. You're not allowed to back out now." The eunuch delivered the cold-dispelling ginger soup. Jin Wang took it and scooped up a spoonful to feed Yeshu, but the latter dodged. I'll do it myself." Jin Wang did not object. He dismissed the servants in the hall and the two of them sat side by side on the small couch. Yeshu took small sips of the ginger soup and tilted his head to look at Jin Wang. Jin Wang's expression still didn't reveal anything, but the suffocating pressure around him had disappeared, as if he really wasn't angry. On the contrary, he was a little happy. Yeshu asked, "If I really left with Xiao Huan just now, would you kill me?" Jin Wang paused and said, "No." "Then will you lock me up?" Jin Wang placed the bowl of soup to the side and thought for a moment before shaking his head. "I don't know. Tonight, I've been thinking that if you really want to leave, should I keep you here?" Jin Wang lowered his eyes and his expression darkened slightly. "It's easy to detain people, but it's hard to keep people's hearts. If your heart isn't with me, even if you stay this time, you'll find a chance to leave in the future. So, Zhen followed you today." He only went there for an answer. Yeshu understood what he meant and his voice suddenly became dry. How can you be like this? If I really left today, then Zhen would chase you back." Jin Wang smiled and stroked Yeshu's hair. "Xiao Huan thinks that everything will be fine if he brings you to their fief. He underestimates Zhen too much. This emperor never give up on what Zhen wants easily." Jin Wang looked into Yeshu's eyes and said seriously, "This is what you taught Zhen?" Yeshu's eyes stung and he lowered his head. "It wasn't me." Jin Wang asked, "What did you say?" "I said, it wasn't me." Yeshu didn't dare to look at him. His voice was soft but clear. "Jin Wang, what I said to Xiao Huan today was not a lie. I'm not the Yeshu that you know. I've been lying to you all this time." Jin Wang's hand on Yeshu's back froze for a moment before he slowly withdrew it. Yeshu couldn't stop his hands from trembling. He took a deep breath and tried to calm his voice. But he couldn't do it. He couldn't even express himself clearly. Yeshu spoke incoherently. He stumbled over his transmigration, his original world, his true identity, and all the lies he had told in the past. Yeshu's voice trembled more and more as he spoke. "It's like this. I'm not the Yeshu you know. I don't know where the real Yeshu went. I'm not worthy of you being so good to me." The hall was silent for a long time. Yeshu didn't dare to turn his head to look at the expression of the person beside him, but he could feel that his gaze was fixed on him. Time seemed to pass very slowly in this silence. Yeshu felt like he was being slowly roasted over a fire. He was almost driven crazy by this feeling. "Are you done?" Jin Wang suddenly asked. Yeshu slowly nodded. Jin Wang sighed and leaned over to Yeshu with his arms open, as if he wanted to hug him. Yeshu reflexively stood up and avoided his embrace. Jin Wang looked up. It was hard to tell if he was happy or angry. Why won't you let me hug you?" Yeshu hurriedly met Jin Wang's gaze, but there was no trace of anger in the latter's eyes. Jin Wang stretched his body and sat down on the small couch. He leisurely said, "Didn't you say earlier that you would be at my disposal after you confessed?" Yeshu nodded. "Yes. Then why aren't you coming over here?" Yeshu couldn't figure out what Jin Wang was thinking. He hesitantly took half a step forward, then another half a step, and was then directly pulled into Jin Wang's embrace. Jin Wang let Yeshu sit on his lap. He hugged him tightly from behind and rested his head on Yeshu's shoulder. "I've wronged you in the past," Jin Wang suddenly said softly. Yeshu was stunned. You came to this strange world with no one to rely on. Even your life was threatened. You must be very afraid, right? Yeshu's eyes suddenly turned red. Jin Wang said softly, you clearly didn't do anything, but you had to take responsibility for the things you didn't do. You were bullied like that. I'm sorry, I've wronged you. This was the second time that Jin Wang had apologized to him. But why? Wasn't he the one who did something wrong? Why did this person have to apologize? Yeshu's mind was in a mess. He stared blankly at Jin Wang until the latter tenderly brushed his finger across Yeshu's cheek. Don't cry, Ashu. I'm here, don't cry. He was crying. Before Yeshu could think about it, he felt a warm touch on his eyelids. Jin Wang kissed away his tears. Yeshu cried even harder. He tilted his head to avoid Jin Wang's kiss. He didn't say anything, but his tears fell silently like a string of beads. Jin Wang didn't know what to do with him. He didn't dare to touch him again, so he just gently stroked his back. This method of pacification was very effective. Yeshu's trembling body slowly calmed down. Jin Wang carried him into the inner room, then called for someone to bring hot water. He wrung out a handkerchief and helped wipe his face. Yeshu tilted his head to avoid it, but Jin Wang said, "Don't move. You're crying like a cat. Let's wipe it." Yeshu pursed his lips and didn't try to avoid it anymore. Jin Wang helped him wipe away the tears on his face, then took a warm handkerchief and placed it over Yeshu's eyes. He then hugged him tightly. "You really can't cry anymore." Jin Wang sighed, "If you continue crying, Imperial Physician Fen will blame me for not doting on you and causing you to be angry all day while pregnant." Yeshu softly gasped and asked in a small voice, "You? Why did you?" Why wasn't he surprised at all? Jin Wang's feelings for the original were self-evident. He should have been very angry when he found out that Yeshu had impersonated him. But not only was he not angry, he even apologized to him and comforted him. Unless, Yeshu pushed away Jin Wang's hand. He raised his red eyes and asked, "Did you already guess?" Jin Wang was silent for a moment. "I couldn't guess your identity, but I roughly knew that there was a problem with your identity." "Why?" Jin Wang said, "On the day that Xiao Huan entered the palace, I told you that when we went to the south to deal with the flood, we passed by Lord Hu's fief and you suggested that I become friends with him. Do you remember?" Yeshu didn't answer. Jin Wang continued, "It was indeed you who suggested that I become friends with him, but the location wasn't right. We never went to his fief. I met Lord Hu several years ago when he came to the capital to celebrate the previous emperor's birthday." Yeshu suddenly understood. No wonder Xiao Huan kept saying that he wanted to take Yeshu away from the capital and let him stay in their fief. They didn't meet at their territory in the south. From that moment on, Jin Wang knew that he wasn't the real Yeshu. Or perhaps, he had already had his suspicions even earlier. Yeshu's fingers curled up and he continued to ask, "Then why? Why are you still so good to me? I'm clearly not." His voice still sounded like he was about to cry. He sounded very wronged. Yeshu knew that he shouldn't be like this. He was the one who deceived Jin Wang's feelings first. No matter what secrets there were, deceiving people was wrong. He should have properly apologized to Jin Wang and tell him the truth. He shouldn't be so pretentious as to cry endlessly and let others comfort him. But he couldn't help it. The better Jin Wang treated him, the more he couldn't help it. Yeshu's eyelashes trembled slightly. Droplets of tears filled his eyes. Jin Wang lifted his head and looked into his red eyes. "Ashu, we've known each other for more than 10 years. More than 10 years of getting along and supporting each other. Do you think that's not enough for this emperor to understand you?" Yeshu didn't understand. "What are you saying?" "I said, I don't believe that you're a fake." Jin Wang said each word seriously. "I don't believe that you've been replaced by someone else. I don't believe that you're a different person from the past. You're the Yeshu that I know. You're not someone else. Yeshu was so flabbergasted that he even forgot to cry. He said so much, but this person thought that he was not laying out the truth. What was wrong with this person's brain? He sat up and said anxiously, I'm really not lying to you. I can't possibly. Don't be anxious. It's not that this emperor doesn't believe what you're saying. Jin Wang interrupted him and asked patiently, you said that you lost some of your memories when you were young, right? Yes. Jin Wang asked again, you said that when you were young, your legs were disabled, but one day, they suddenly recovered. Yes. Jin Wang laughed softly, see, you've already told me the answer. Yeshu still didn't understand. If you hadn't brought this up today, this emperor would have almost forgotten it. Jin Wang placed his hands on Yeshu's legs and said softly, when this emperor and Ashu first met, his legs weren't very nimble. It wasn't that he couldn't use them, but that he didn't know how to. At that time, he was already 7 or 8 years old, but he acted like a child who had just learned how to walk. He said that when he was young, his legs were disabled and they were just cured not long ago. After this emperor left the cold palace with him and regained my status as a prince, Zhen had the imperial physician examine him. Jin Wang looked at Yeshu and said seriously, his legs were very healthy and there were no traces of any previous illness in them. Yeshu was stunned. He had cried too fiercely just now, so his mind was in a mess, as if he had already lost the ability to think. Yeshu was stunned for a long time, then said absent-mindedly, the original was also disabled? So I transmigrated here because I am very much like him. That's quite a coincidence. Jin Wang's expression suddenly became indescribable. What's wrong with you? You're not smart when you're supposed to be smart, but when you're not being smart, you come up with all sort of ideas. Jin Wang was quite helpless. He gently pinched Yeshu's cheek. Zhen clearly have another guess. Is it possible that you are actually him? End chapter.